What is going on, YouTube? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards here for part 2 of NBA players we maybe should be buying before the playoffs start. I'm buying some of them. I've already bought some of them. I'm buying more. We'll see. We shall see. Does this market come back or not? We'll find out in about 5 to 6 weeks. Before we dig into it, boys and girls, like, comment, sub, smash the like button. Hit it. Did you hit it? Okay, you hit it. Yeah, let's get into it. We're going to talk Western Conference today. Did Eastern Conference yesterday. Recording this one on Monday night. Waited to do this one just in case something wild and crazy happened. But here we are. Western Conference targets. As we talked about yesterday, I'll kind of just lay out the quick premise here in case you missed yesterday's. These are players I'm intrigued in for a playoff run. And also, if that fails us, that wouldn't necessarily be bad holds to start next season. I am sure there's a player I'm going to leave off this list that you are interested in. Can't touch on them all. We're going to touch on a lot because I really think the Western Conference is loaded. There is a billion guys I like in the Western Conference. I'm going to hit my general thoughts on the Western Conference standings in the playoffs and whatnot, and then we'll dig into some individual players. So we'll be using market movers a bunch today, as always. Links are in the description down below. Discount codes down there, et cetera, et cetera. You guys and girls know the drill by now. So let's dig in. Big question I got yesterday in a lot of the comments, I'll just cover this quickly, is, do I think the market comes back? I don't know. I really don't. I mean, obviously, I think it has a chance to. That's why, I'm spending anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 on some of this stuff to get it in before the playoffs. Do I think it's going to get back to like what it was last August? No, that's a pipe dream. It's not getting back there. That was a once in a lifetime event, possibly, of what the basketball, just the card market in general, looked like last August. But I do think these prices are going to go up once the playoffs start. But we're essentially sports betting here. That's really what this turns into this time of year. Because anyone that doesn't make the playoffs, their prices are going to stay flat or slightly go down and then slowly start to tick back up again. Anyone that makes the playoffs, A, have to make it, and B, have to play well and win rounds, and then their prices are most likely going to go up. If they play well and lose, like Luka last year, their prices might spike for a game or two, and then they will go down. And they will go down hard and fast, like Luka's did last year. So you're basically futures betting, is essentially what you're doing. That's the reason why I am also trying to target players that if I get stuck holding them throughout the summer because maybe X player pops off in a game and I say, no, I'm going to ride the wave, and then they end up lose the series or whatever, and I missed my window to sell. While it'll suck, I'll still be into a good player that I like for the start of next NBA season with the faith that their prices will rebound a little bit. Maybe I missed out on the high, but I don't think I'll be like stuck, if that makes sense. I just might have to hold it longer, which isn't great, but it is what it is. So that's kind of the premise of this whole thing. So with that long-winded intro, let's get into it because this could be a long one. There's a lot of players I want to talk about here, and I have thoughts on a lot of them. We're going to start off with the two spiciest first. I usually don't like to make like numbered lists and all that jazz, but I'm just going to be straight honest with you guys. There are two players. There's a lot of players on this list, but there's two in particular that I like more than anyone else that I've talked about in either yesterday's video or the rest of today's video. The first one is Donovan Mitchell. I know he's criminally underappreciated. His stuff's always way too cheap. And stop me if you've heard this one before as I stumble over that sentence. Donovan Mitchell's stuff, guess what? It's too cheap. His Prism PSA 10, and remember, this is 2017 stuff. Prism population counts are low. There's under 4,000 of these. Sitting at sub $500. Sub $500. They are the 1 seed. They have played outstanding all season. I don't know that they're going to win at all. They've had their problems in the past, but the Jazz look legit. Like I said, I don't know that they're going to win the whole thing. I don't know that I need them to win the whole thing. But if you're going to sit there and tell me that Donovan Mitchell isn't going to take over a playoff game, especially in the first round or two, where they are potentially going to get matched up with a play-in game winner, like, I don't know, Golden State, the Spurs, the Grizzlies, the Mavericks, the Trailblazers, depending on how things play out. Imagine Donovan Mitchell versus Ja Morant round 1. I don't think the Jazz have a chance in hell in that series, but Mitchell versus Morant or Mitchell versus Steph Curry. Yeah, sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. You know, and then round 2, basically in the West, once you get past the first round, it's a bloodbath. And really in the first round, it's a bloodbath, depending on what seed you get. So the seeding in the West is going to be very interesting. All that being said, Mitchell's stuff is just dirt cheap. Sub 500 for his Prism seems crazy to me. When Tatum sells for a lot more, and that's someone in the same class that, yes, he's had good numbers, but they're like a 6 or a 7 seed, and Mitchell plays on the best team in the West. Now, you could say, well, if the Lakers were healthy, they wouldn't be the best team in the West. That very well could be true, but they'd be the second best team in the West, at least by the numbers. His select concourse, I wanted to pull Premier, but to be honest with you, I couldn't find one that sold anytime recently. The population count on that thing must be very small, because I could not find any that have sold anytime within the last couple months, at least at a quick glance. His 2017 concourse, which, by the way, can we talk about how nice 2017 concourse select looks? Like, that card is gorgeous. I love 2017 select concourse. I have none. I wish that I did. This card to me actually seems appropriately priced. I guess it should go up a little bit, but it's selling for the same amount as the Prism. Population count of 530. Prism pop counts 4,000. The Optic to me is the one that is criminally underrated. And I really like the design of 2017 Optic. I don't like a lot of the parallels, but I really like the way the base looks. And also, as has been noted on the channel for a long time, I am a sucker for that rated rookie logo. But this thing has a population count of 2,000, and they're going for just over $200. Everything on this list feels too cheap for Mitchell. They have a legit chance to win the NBA championship. They absolutely do. A lot of teams in the West do. You're going to hear that come out of my mouth a lot. And I don't mind Mitchell as a hold for next season either. Sub 500 for his Prism just seems way too cheap. And I like the idea, like we talked about yesterday. While, yes, we didn't get it in at the lows in the early part of the season, like around Christmas in January when this thing was down to $300, but we're also not buying it at the peak. This got up to around 600 for his Prism. The Select was up to 500 and the Optic was up to 300. So we're getting nice discounts on that. And you can actually see his stuff and the next guy we're talking about. I would act now. Their stuff's already starting to creep up. This is on the upswing. This is on the upswing. The Optic is relatively flat. The one thing that I've really noticed digging in all these charts the last couple weeks, both this and for some other videos that I've done, Select has really pulled apart from Optic. Like, Select has left Optic in the dust. And I think Optic's criminally undervalued. But I've been a big fan of Optic forever, so that's nothing new around here. But regardless, Mitchell's stuff just seems way, way, way too cheap. Like, I get the Zion hype. Like, he's been playing out of his mind. His Prism has a population count of 16,000. They're like the 11th seed. And this goes for 475. And Mitchell's the best player on the 1 seed. Probably, maybe. I don't think he is going to. But his name's probably going to be... He's probably a top 5 MVP finalist. I think Joker's going to win it for sure, but Mitchell's going to be up there. He has to be in consideration. And I like the idea that all his stuff is low pop count, regardless of what you get into. Compare it to 18, 19, 19, 20, and it's nothing compared to those guys. So Mitchell's my first one. I love the Prism. I really love the optic for the price. And this I like too. I just love I think it's just a gorgeous card, and there's only 500 of them. So I think this one is more appropriately priced, but I still feel like it's a little too cheap. If you think they could do anything at all in the playoffs. Full disclosure, because I like to disclose this stuff. I have purchased two of these now, both for around 450-ish. One on Star Stock for like 445, 450. And then I bought a lot on eBay on Friday night, which I think I got a really good deal on 3 days ago. I got a PSA 10 Prism and 2 optic PSA 10s for $850. So like 4 something on this and like 2-ish something on these all together in the lot. I think I got a really good deal on it. I just think his stuff is criminally too cheap. So that's a very long time on Mitchell. The next guy we're going to talk about, we're actually going to talk about 2 guys. The next team, rather, we're going to talk about, I guess, are I had to double check to make sure I forgot what order I had them in. The Nuggets. Though they're the 4th seed, I think the Nuggets are right. In my opinion, it's a 3-team race. And a lot of this depends on the health of the Lakers. I think it's the Jazz, I think it's the Suns, and I think it's the Nuggets. People are going to say, what about the Clippers? As we like to say around here, the Clippers are going to clipper, in my opinion. They've been playing great, but until they actually show it to me in the playoffs that they can't get out of their own damn way, then the Clippers are going to clipper. The Lakers, it's all going to come down to AD and LeBron's health. My fear is with them, or my worry is with them, is that they're going to get everybody back, but they're all going to be coming back right before the playoffs start. We are, I think, 5 weeks away, 4.5 weeks away, 4 weeks away from the NBA playoffs. LeBron's back in about 2 or 3 weeks. AD's back in like 10 to 15 days, I think. That's not a lot of ramp up time to go straight into the playoffs. By the way, if the playoffs started today, they play the Nuggets in the first round. Good luck. Coming off of missing basically 2 months, straight into the Nuggets, who are firing on all cylinders. They are 8-2 in their last 10, and they've been playing out of their minds since they got Aaron Gordon. That team looks legit. So good luck to the Lakers if you end up staying at the 5 seed. And I think the Nuggets are actually going to move up. I don't know that they're going to catch the Suns and the Jazz, but I think they could catch the Clippers. Maybe they catch the Suns too. They could get up to the 2 seed. So then you're saying the Lakers have to get the Clippers in round 1. Have fun with that. That doesn't sound like very much fun. I know I just talked about the Clippers are going to clipper, but do you really want to play against Kawhi Leonard and Paul George when you're coming off 2 months off? So that's my big concern with the Lakers, is they're going to get everybody back, but they're just not going to be missing all that time. You know, things get weird. Can they flip that switch again and make the run? I'm not going to count LeBron out of anything, but they have a much tougher path to the playoffs this year than last year. So to me, I am all aboard the Nugget train as well. I actually, as much as I love Donovan Mitchell's stuff right now, I think the Nuggets are actually the better team. If I had to bet on a Western Conference Finals team, it's the Nuggets, in my opinion. And I'd actually probably have the Suns and the Jazz are really a toss-up. I really like the Suns team too. We'll get to them in a minute. So let's talk about the Nuggets. This one's number 1 on my list, actually, for a lot of different reasons. I think it's tough between him and Mitchell. The thing I like about Porter Jr., and that's who we're going to talk about next, is I like the idea of Porter Jr. now, and I've really come around on Porter Jr. as a longer term hold. Like, I'm not going to be sad if I get stuck holding his stuff in the next season and ride the waves with him. I think he's special. I think he's legit really good. They are using him as intended now, especially with Gordon there. Porter doesn't have to worry about defense as much. And he seems to be really gelling with that team in the new version of that team with Gordon. He's been playing absolutely fantastic. And his prices are already on the upswing. So that's the only part I don't like about this, but they're still cheaper than what they were at the start of the season. So here's his charts. I pulled Prism, both selects, and his optic. His Prism to start the season, and once again, I ran these charts back to Christmas Day. I like using Christmas Day. It's a good line of demarcation It's a couple days after the season started, but everyone had at least played. Prices hadn't tanked yet, so it gives you a good idea where everyone's starting from. His Prism was around 350 to start the season. It is currently at about 250. It got to a low of about 175, which is dirt cheap. That was right after all his different COVID protocols and all that nonsense. And then he spiked back up. So you're not buying in at the absolute floor again, but we're not paying the top tier preseason price either. So I feel like with him, we are buying on the upswing, not at the top, because I think he has a ways to go. I like every single one of these cards. I like the Prism base at 250. I love the Select at 220. I love the Select Premier at 250. I've missed out on multiple auctions for that card already this week, and it has made me sad. I got outbid twice on his Premier level card, both at around $250. I should have just went more. I don't know why that I didn't, but I'm pissed at myself now. His PSA 10 Prism, I have one actually in an econ order that just popped at PSA on its way back to me. And I have a red, white, and blue that I bought last year. So I have some of his stuff already, but I want more. The Optic from 2018 doesn't get a lot of love, but that's not a bad card if you're looking for a cheaper option at 110. And then the Concourse at 220 seems absolutely dirt cheap to me. All of these just seem astronomically too cheap, especially the Select stuff. This seems very undervalued. But I love Porter Jr. He has huge potential. You could either buy, this is why I like this. I mentioned it earlier. He has the ability that he could pay you off in the playoffs, or if you don't like the situation in the playoffs, you could just sit on it and just ride it out. And I think he gets a ton of buzz in the off season, and his prices spike before next season starts as well. And then you could sell him then. So I think you're really doubly protected here, but I am very much coming around as MPJ making my list of 5. If you're not familiar with the list of 5, prior to the season, I had a list of 5 players that I was willing to hold long-term and ride the wave. It's Luka, Trey, Ja, Tatum, and Giannis. Those are my 5 of like the ultra modern guys that I was willing to ride the waves with. And whatever kind of happened. I changed my thinking on that a little bit. I would, at this point in time, I'm 100% willing to remove Trey from that list and replace him with Michael Porter Jr. But once again, I'm not going to say no to taking a massive profit. If this guy spikes in the playoffs, I'll get off of him and get back into him in the summer or something. But MPJ, I think, is criminally undervalued across the board. I think he's legit going to be an NBA superstar in the league. If he's not on the cusp of that already, he gets overshadowed by Joker and Jamal Murray, but I really think he's going to shine in these playoffs, and his stuff's just criminally too cheap. His running mate, the big man, the Joker, probably your NBA MVP. People will argue about Harden, Embiid, Mitchell, maybe some other guys. I think it's Jokic, and I don't think it's very close. His stuff is on the upswing. That's the only thing I don't like about this. He was 700 to start the season. He's up to around 1,500. That's while we are definitely not buying anywhere during any of these dips whenever it dropped down. I do think sub 1,500 or less is probably too cheap for him. He's about to win an MVP. He's probably the best, or he is the best player on a NBA Finals contender. And I think they have a legit shot to make the NBA Finals. They have playoff experience now after last season, and that team just looks loaded as long as they can stay healthy for the playoffs. You know, you got Joker, you got Porter, you got Gordon, and you got Jamal Murray. That is a freaking nightmare to deal with. Plus Denver altitude and all that crap for playoff games. So at 1,500, I would much rather buy into Joker at 1,500 than, like we talked about, Kyrie yesterday for slightly more. I think Kyrie was like 16, 17, 1,800. I forget the Kyrie price on his PSA 10. I would rather have a Joker PSA 10 for slightly less, to be honest. I think it has a higher upside, especially if he wins the MVP. So Jamal Murray did not make the list. I'm sure I'll catch some flack for that, but he's just so up or down. And I know that he had just an absolute monster playoffs last year. But as I like to say on the channel, there's only so many places you could spend your money. Like, we all have limited budgets. If we had unlimited budgets, there wouldn't be a reason to do this, to buy and flip to get in the bigger cards. We would just go buy the bigger cards. So everyone has some sort of limited budget. You can't buy into everything. There's just other players I would rather buy into than Jamal Murray. Maybe that's a mistake, but I would rather buy Mitchell. I would rather buy MPJ for sure, just to name two. So maybe I'm wrong leaving him off, but he didn't make my list. Maybe he makes yours. That's fine. You guys can yell at me in the comments below about it. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, Joker, I do think even at 1,500 is probably a little too cheap and has the potential to go a lot higher. Obviously, a lot riskier when you get into a $1,500 play, but it all depends on what your budget is. You know, maybe buy a PSA 9 or he does have select stuff out there. The pop counts are super low though, if you could track them down. Next on the list, the Suns. Oh, the Suns. How I love you. I love the entire Suns team, basically. At least there's top 6. This one surprised me. I'm not going to lie. I don't look at his stuff very often, but Chris Paul's stuff is criminally undervalued. This is his base tops card. It's kind of ugly, not going to lie. But a PSA 10 of this is only around $750. That seems real cheap given his resume. He's not going to win it, but his name's starting to get tossed around in the MVP debate. And he's had an absolutely outstanding career. Yeah, he's never gotten the ring, but he could this year. They're legit good. And if he gets a ring, that's a whole different looking resume. And then his stuff looks way too cheap if that happens. This is a pop 147 in a PSA 10. PSA 9's pop 85. There is not a lot of his stuff graded. And yeah, it's paper, but still 750 and 350. 750 for a Chris Paul PSA 10 rookie. I was flabbergasted when I saw that. And then if you look at his tops chrome, to me, that seems way too cheap too. This is his tops chrome rookie. PSA 10, there's 210 of them. PSA 9, there's 171 of them. His PSA 10 goes for between $1,500 and $2,000. What? Are you kidding me? Like, I get it. He has never been able to close out in the playoffs, but this could be the year. If you play in this budget, this just seems way too cheap. And yeah, we're buying not at the cheapest. His stuff was $650 back in January. That baffles me for a tops chrome PSA 10 of one of the greatest point guards of all time. Like I said, I don't look at his stuff very often. My mistake, apparently. But his stuff seems way too cheap. And let's talk about his running mate, Devin Booker. He's not having a bad season. I don't think he's putting up as huge of numbers this year, so he's not as flashy, but he's probably playing better than last year, if that makes sense. Chris Paul, sucked away some of his pure box score stats, but he looks great this year, and his prices have stayed 100% flat. His PSA 10 to start the season was $1,000. His PSA 10 currently is a little over $1,000. There's been some ups and downs. It got down to around 800. It got back up to around 1,100, 1,200. But the net result is that it's basically stayed flat. Low pop count, only 1,300 of these in a PSA 10 on an excellent team. And I think astronomically too cheap. Let's not forget, once again, I don't think we get back there, but this card was like $3,000 or $4,000, I think, last summer. I don't think it gets there. But if they make a Western Conference or a finals run, or even the Western Conference finals, and he balls out, is this a $2,000 card? I think it could be. I really do. These low population count cards, it takes a lot less to move to market. Keep that in mind. But yeah, Booker stuff seems way too cheap. Ayton, okay. I put him on the list. I get a lot of questions about him. This is the one that I would be least likely to buy on this list. And actually, I don't even know that I would fully recommend this. I just included it more to talk about him because I'll get a million questions if I don't include him. The only thing I like about Ayton is that his prices are really cheap. His PSA 10 optic is $65. His PSA 10 prism is $110. His select is $100 and $150 for the concourse and the premiere. And all these pop counts are pretty low because there's just not a ton of his graded stuff out there. His premiere PSA 10 has pop 36. His concourse is pop 86. His prism is only 3,200 and his optic is only 260. So he is a very, very good NBA player. He has really fit in with this team, but he's like 15 and 10 a night most nights, which is fine. And like I said, he's playing great team basketball for them. I don't know that that translates into selling lots of PSA 10 slabs for increased profits. I think his stuff will naturally go up if the Suns play well and they keep advancing. So that's the biggest reason why I included him on here. But I personally would not go nuts on Ayton. The only Ayton stuff I own is I have a small stack of raw prisms that I picked up in a large prism rookie lot last year that I've just kind of been sitting on because I kind of missed the window to sell and have just been sitting on it since, waiting for his prices to rebound. But we're also buying at a low on him. All his stuff is pretty down. His PSA 10 prism to start the season was around $200. So you're getting almost a 40% discount on that. His optics down 30%. His select stuff, as we've seen in most of these, is actually up. It continues to be the case that select is the one thing that has held value extremely well, even in this downswing NBA market. Select is definitely the big winner of this basketball season, and it's not even close. All right, Clippers are going to Clipper, but we got to at least mention them. Leonard's stuff is pretty cheap, given the resume that he already has. His PSA 10 prism's $2,500. I know that that's quote unquote doesn't sound super cheap, but when you consider he's a multi NBA champion, the best player on his team, and all kidding aside, like they at least have a chance to win the finals or to make the finals and win the finals this year. I don't think they're going to, but they have a shot. And once again, this is a case where you're not buying it at a peak. His prices were $2,600 to start the season. They're $2,600 now. He had a little bit of an uptick when all the GOATs got a big uptick. It got up to $3,700. So I think if he puts on a huge playoff run, it could easily get back to that price because it's been there once already this season. That was when LeBron stuff went nuts and he kind of drug all these other guys along with him. So I'm personally not a super huge fan of this one, but I wouldn't hate you for doing it. Like, I get it. I understand. Personally, if it was my own money, there's other places I would rather spend it, but I get it. I could justify it. Same thing being said, the Lakers. We talked about them at the beginning of the video with the whole, my concerns with them coming back from injury and maybe just not being ready. That being said, if you ever wanted to get into AD and LeBron and you think that they're going to come back healthy and rampage through the West, now's your time. AD stuff, once again, has stayed flat. He's been injured pretty much on and off all season. This one's a little bit risky, but for $2,000 for his PSA 10 prism, that seems pretty cheap. And same thing with LeBron. His top's chrome. I feel like if you wanted to get back in the LeBron, now's your time. You're not paying the super cheap in air quotes, prices that were going on back at Christmas, but you're not paying the February spike when his stuff went ballistic. His stuff's on the downswing with him not playing and just kind of the general malaise around the current NBA market. If you wanted a Topps Chrome, this is probably a good time to pull the trigger. I really want a PSA 9, but that is just still out of my price range right now. Maybe a PSA 8's in play for around $4 if I found a nice looking one and I could trade into it some. Personally, I would really like a Topps Chrome at some point in time. I would prefer a 9. We'll see. Keep flipping, moving to the bigger stuff. Maybe I'll get there eventually. I could pull the trigger if I really wanted to, but that would just eat up a lot of my card budget all on the one card. And that's kind of like once I get that, I don't necessarily want to move that anytime soon. But if this is your wallet and you could play in this range, this seems pretty cheap for LeBron stuff. So not to fly through the Lakers, but trying to keep this relatively not super long. Last couple ones to talk about. And these are going to be more flyers, not so much because of the names, but because of their positioning and the teams around them. Luka's the big one. He's been playing out of his goddamn mind lately, but the team's just not fantastic. I mean, they have been winning and stuff, but I just don't see them getting very far in the playoffs. Hell, right now they have to win a play-in game. I think they catch the Trailblazers for the 6th seed. I don't know for sure, though. And I did not include the Blazers on this list. But if he gets in, we saw it last year. I think if Porzingis is healthy, they easily beat the Clippers last year in that round. And watching Luka in the playoffs last year against the Clippers was just absolutely insane. The card market, the night he hit that game winner, in the peak of the card market craziness, and he drills that game winner in that playoff game, just watching, I mean, it was like the wheels on a slot machine just spinning, and you hit the jackpot, and then just stuff starts spitting out. That was Luka's prices that night. They went to the moon. People say to the moon all the time. They went to the moon that day. It didn't hold for very long, but goddamn was it fun that night when he hit that shot. It was just insane. And if you don't think playoff Luka's going to have some moments that's going to cause his cards to spike, boy, I don't know what to tell you. It's going to happen. Whether they win or not, it's a whole different story. You could have a very short window to sell it, and maybe for something like that, you want to stick to a star stock where you don't have to worry about eBay returns and all that crap. But here's the other thing. Worst case scenario, you get stuck holding Luka. Oh, darn. What a shame. I've been saying it for a while. Unless this whole cookie just crumbles, I think these are the bottom of the prices for Luka. Is this in-season dip here in March and April. And by the start of next season, I'm either going to look like an idiot or I'm going to look like the smartest man in the room with this, because I've been harping on this for 3 weeks now. When I run charts in October, right before the season starts, assuming the season starts around Halloween like it used to, and we're at that peak of the NBA market right before the season started, I just don't see how all the charts and graphs point back to now on Luka as being like, what the hell? I've said this in a ton of videos. What the hell were we all thinking, not just buying Luka in March? And I've done the same goddamn thing. I've bought next to no Luka the last couple weeks because I get entranced by something else, like Donovan Mitchell, who I just spent a bunch of money on, or Ultimate Fallout 4 or New Mutants 98, when really I probably should have just been buying Luka Select Premieres or even Concourses for that matter. We'll see. Like I said, maybe this whole ship sinks, or not sinks. It's not gonna go all Vegas Dave and be worthless, but it just doesn't get back to the levels that anyone thought that it was going to. But I just find it hard to believe that Luka stuff is not astronomically is probably too strong of a word, but not quite a bit higher than what it's at right now, if you have any faith in the market at all. And worst case scenario, if you're not big on Luka long term, I can't believe he doesn't have some crazy ass playoff moment that causes prices to go nuts for a couple days, and you could sell into that. Like I said, it's risky because of eBay returns and all that garbage, but take it to a card shop, take a little bit less for it, get out of it if you want to move it fast. And then let's close out, because if I don't talk about them, people will murder me. Ja and Zion. Here's the problem. The Grizzlies and Pelicans, really, let's flip back to the NBA standings really quick. Grizzlies are probably in, at least in a playoff game, or play-in game, rather. The Pelicans have some work to do. They are lucky because the Golden State Warriors and Spurs suck and want no part of the playoffs, I don't think. So I think the Pelicans do end up sneaking in. And then it's all going to depend on what the matchups are. And let's just say one of the Warriors or Spurs falls out and the Pelicans slide into the 10th seed and everything else remains the same. The play-in game round 1 would be Luka versus Zion. The internet will lose its goddamn mind. Twitter will be insane. And if you don't think that's going to be a primetime event, whew. As a Luka backer and fan myself, I hope that they get into the 6th seed to avoid that and the Trailblazers slide down some. We'll see what happens. That's going to be a pretty close race, I think. But if that happens, then you're going to get Damian Lillard versus Zion in a play-in game. Are you kidding me? That would be nuts. I don't know if the Pelicans can beat either of those teams. They probably can because Zion could go Zion, but I wouldn't want to play Luka in a one-game situation. No thanks, man. And Zion's been playing great. You know, I've notoriously said I do not like Zion as a long-term hold. I haven't changed stances on that. I don't like many players as long-term holds. I was very big on selling Zion before the season. Now, this is cheating a little bit because guess what? You would have made more money selling him back in December than you would now, but you could say that about most of the NBA market. So I'm not going to take too much credit for that. But if you sold Zion at Christmas at $1,000 a piece for his PSA 10 Prism, you could be buying it back right now at $600 or $700. So these two both get tricky, Ja and Zion both, because I think they're both going to be in play-in games, and then that just gets risky because then you got to start winning either 1 or 2 play-in games and how all that crap shakes out and see what happens. But the idea of, and Ja played out of his mind last year in the play-in game. That was an amazing game out of him. Ja and Zion in a best of 1 is super enticing. And this is where it comes down to you're basically sports betting. If you're big on trying to sell either one of them during the playoffs, you know, you're basically just betting on them to win the game. You know, they both play out of their mind in a play-in game and then make the actual first round of the NBA playoffs. Oh, by the way, your prize there is either the Jazz, the Suns, the Clippers, or the Nuggets, most likely. Good luck. But just the excitement of the play-in game and getting in, and for them to win, they're probably going to have to ball out. That intrigues me. I mean, Ja's stuff is absolutely dirt cheap in the grand scheme of things. His optics down to 150, his prisms at 350, his concourse at 214 seems really cheap. And even his premier level at 350 seems pretty reasonable with a population count of 640. And once again, the premier level has held up the best. It's only down 6% since the start of the season, where everything else is down 30 to 50%. Zion's been on an upswing lately. He's still down for the year, but we are definitely buying on the way back up. And like I said, he's been playing out of his goddamn mind the last week or 2 weeks, really, since they kind of turned him into point Zion. That being said, they barely beat a Cavs team 2 nights ago that didn't have Sexland. Dean Wade almost knocked them out. They barely won that game. So I just don't know what's going on with the Pelicans. I feel like they're really a year away. They need like another off season to kind of figure things out. But if you're telling me you want to buy Zion now for a potential playoff flip, I get it. I absolutely get it. Or you're holding your Zion till then, I get it. I'm not going to hate you for it. So that's all I got for you guys today. I'm sure this one went extremely long. There was a lot to cover here. So let me know who I missed, didn't talk about, etc. A couple bargain plays that I like, just real quick. I'm not going to pull charts and graphs. I want both Suns, Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges. I like both those guys. I really like Cam Johnson for a long-term play for someone that's super cheap that you can get into for nothing. Just buy him, stick him in a drawer, hold him for a couple years. I really like Cam Johnson a lot. Bridges is really good too. More of a defensive player. I like Cam Johnson a little bit better between those two, but you can get into both those guys pretty cheap. I don't know that they pop off necessarily in a playoff game, but they could But regardless, I don't mind holding either one of those guys in the next season either. So, all right, guys and girls, that's all we have for you today. Sorry this one went so long. We will catch you on the next one. Peace.